One chocolate bar after a week without, and within 30 seconds, my brain was hunting for the next one. That's not weakness. I've now got enough data to know it's not even close to weakness. But for 20 years, that's exactly what I thought. I'm Neil, I'm 52, off all medications since February 2024, after 13 years of NHS blood tests that track the whole thing. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you the pattern in the data that changed how I think about food and why it matters, whether you're on medication or just starting to notice something's off. First, what actually happens in the brain when certain foods get involved, not the chemistry lecture version, the version I lived through. Then the data from when I tracked what happened after my body had been clean for a while, and one binge and did something that took weeks to build. And then Boxing Day 2023, the moment I stopped calling it willpower and started calling it what it actually was. We're starting there. Boxing Day 2023, 18 stone, 5 medications, couldn't walk upstairs without stopping halfway. I looked in the mirror and said out loud to nobody, this ends now. Not Monday, not January, that day. What I thought I was fixing was willpower. I've run out of it for years, decades actually. The plan was simple enough. Fast, cut the junk, get the blood test done, stick to it this time. And I did. For the first time in my adult life, I actually did. 14 months later, 13 stone 7, off every medication. HbA1c from 47 pre-diabetic back to 37 normal. No statins, no alpurinol for the gout, no asthma inhalers. My GP was using words I'd never heard of him use in 20 years of blood tests. So I thought I'd cracked the willpower problem. Turns out I'd done something slightly different. I'd removed access. Fasting meant there was no window. No window meant no decision. And no decision meant the old patterns couldn't fire. What I hadn't cracked, and this is what the last 24 months of tracking has shown me, is the pattern that runs the moment I let something back in. One chocolate bar, that's all it takes. And I'm not talking about one bad day. I'm talking about 3 to 4 days of my brain actively hunting, food thoughts, cravings out of nowhere, standing in the kitchen looking for the next thing before I'm even registered I'm doing it. Every single time. And then by day 7, I've usually done it again. And then I'm back in the cycle. And this has been my life. Tracked in a spreadsheet for 2 years. Not every day, but every week. Nearly. And I've watched it happen enough times now to know it's not weakness. I've lost 4.5 stone. I've reversed pre-diabetes without medication. I am not a person with no willpower. So what the hell is going on? Let me give you the numbers. December 2023, HbA1c at 47, cholesterol 8, liver enzyme, all at 69. That's elevated. Weight 18 stone, bang on. 23 months later, November 2025, HbA1c 37, liver enzymes fully normal, alt at 10, kidney function excellent, EGFR above 90, cholesterol trending down. My evidence log tracked across every GP visit. That's the trajectory when the inputs are right. Then there are the other numbers. December 3rd, 2025, day 52 of my 70-day rhythm reset. I've been clean for about a week. No UPF, no sugar to speak of. Eating windows were solid. Everything was ticking along. One chocolate bar. Within 30 seconds, not exaggerating, I was in the kitchen looking for more. Not hungry, I'd already eaten. But my brain had switched on to something. It wasn't a choice, or it didn't feel like one. I was actively hunting. Crackers, cheese, anything with a bit of salt or sweetness. By the end of the day, I'd had the chocolate, a yop, crisps and more crackers. Over 1,600 calories from things I hadn't planned. And I'd noticed every single moment of it happening. That's new. 2 years ago, that would have just been a Tuesday. Now I track it. And the pattern from tracking it is this. One UPF event, and I get 3 to 4 days of this hunting behaviour. Day 2, the cravings are still loud. Day 3, they start to quiet. Day 5, I sometimes think I've reset. And I've watched this happen enough times now to be genuinely annoyed by it. By day 7, walked into some social situation and done it again. I've had a meringue with double cream at a friend's dinner. I love a meringue. And here's the thing I've actually noticed. Meringue with fruit and cream, I enjoy that, properly enjoy it. And the penalty of the next day is a fraction of what I get from, say, a chocolate muffin or a lemon muffin with raspberry jam. Interesting, isn't it? The fat in the cream seems to buffer something. The chocolate muffin, same calories roughly, completely different aftermath. January to March 2026, GKI sitting at 43. The morning after meringues and double cream, ketones at 0.1, glucose at 77. Weight that month went from 13 stone 3, end of December, back up to 13 stone 12, and by the end of January, 13 stone 6. And then the pattern runs again. That's not noise, that's a pattern. And here's what I've worked out, finally, about why it happens. I started drinking Coca-Cola at age 5, prescribed by a doctor. Actually, 6 litres a day at peak in my teens. By the time I quit in my 30s, the wiring was decades old. Stopped Coke, found sweets. Stopped sweets for a bit, found biscuits, found crisps. The substance changed, the pattern didn't. And the honest version, I don't eat one sweet, I eat the entire packet. I'm an animal, always have been. It's all or nothing wiring. I can't moderate, never could. What I can do is remove access. What I can't do, what nobody can do, what I can't do, what nobody can do, and this is the thing I missed for 20 years, is outthink a system that was wired before I was old enough to know it was happening. 6 medications, stout, gap pills, asthma inhalers, allergy tablets, the lot. I stopped all of them in 2024 because eating healthily and fasting had created a situation where I didn't feel I needed them before. I documented the process, and if documenting that kind of thing properly sounds worth following, please subscribe. Tim Spector, epidemiologist, wrote Spoon-Fed, one of the most cited scientists in the world. Put it plainly, ultra-processed foods were engineered using sugar, fat and salt, not primarily for flavour, because each one inhibits bacterial and fungal growth and extends shelf life. The obesity epidemic, he argues, is a direct consequence of the industrial food preservation problem, not a personal willpower failure. Read that again, not a personal willpower failure, an industrial food preservation problem. And here's what happens in the brain when those 3 ingredients hit in the right ratios, the so-called bliss point. Precision engineered, your fullness signals get overridden, not weakened. Overridden. The brain gets a dopamine signal before the gut has had time to tell it that you've eaten enough. And then it wants to pull the lever again. This is what I've been watching in my own data. 1 chocolate bar and my brain starts behaving like a slot machine that's been fed 1 coin. It's not looking for satisfaction, it's looking for the next pull and the next. Not because I'm weak, because the lever was engineered to feel that way. That's the pattern, and I'm watching it from the inside. The meringue versus muffin difference I mentioned. I think I know what's happening there. The fat from the cream and the fruit alongside it slows the glucose hit. The bliss point formula gets disrupted. There's real flavour, real satisfaction, real fullness. The brain gets an actual signal. The slot machine doesn't fire the same way. The hunting behaviour is quieter. Maybe 1 day, not 3. Whereas a chocolate muffin, lemon muffin, refined flour, sugary, refined fat, hits fast, signals override, brain goes hunting. Classic bliss point mechanism. I'm not going to pretend I've solved this. I haven't. I'm still doing it most weeks, but I've stopped blaming myself for the mechanism. I blame myself for walking past the cake shop. I do not blame myself for what happens in my brain in the 30 seconds after. That distinction has taken me 20 years to make. What I'd do differently, I'd have understood earlier that the goal wasn't moderation, it was access. If I'm fasting, I can't eat it. Not because I've got more willpower during fast, because there's no window to eat in. Structure beats willpower every single time, certainly for me, and it's in my data. The other thing I'd do differently, I'd have been more honest about which indulgences actually satisfy me. A meringue with fruit and cream that I genuinely enjoy, the penalty's manageable. And I've logged it. It's a 10% rule choice without catastrophising. A chocolate muffin from a cake shop. Half the time I don't even enjoy it while I'm eating it. Not all indulgences are equal. Some are worth it. Some are just the slot machine. If you're tracking your food and you notice a pattern where one-off day plan seems to bleed into 3 or 4 days of increased cravings, that's not a lack of discipline. That's the reward pathway reactivating. It settles, in my case, consistently around day 5 to 6. Sleep quality returns first, then mental clarity. Then the noise quietens. If you've got blood data, check your GKI or glucose the morning after a sugar event. In my case, GKI jumps to 40 something. Ketones drop to near 0. I can feel it before I've looked at the numbers. Once you've seen the pattern a few times, it stops feeling like failure and starts feeling like physiology. That's useful. Physiological explanations are actionable. Self-blame isn't. Here's the thing about 3 to 4 day hunting window. It's not unique to my situation. The mechanism, reward pathway activating, fullness signals getting overridden, the brain looping back for the next hit, runs before a diagnosis, before a doctor notices anything, before any biomarker flags as abnormal. If you've noticed that 1 biscuit seems to lead to 3, that one piece of chocolate seems to start a day of food thoughts that doesn't quite match actual hunger. That's not a character flaw. That's the system doing what it was engineered to do, operating in you. Years before it becomes a clinical problem, the pattern tends to show up in behaviour long before it shows up in blood. It's worth paying attention to now. I track everything in the Way More Than Weight Loss evidence log. Every GP visit, every biomarker, every fast, every pattern I notice. If you want to start tracking your own food patterns, there's a link below to a tracker template that will help you spot the same kind of cycles in your own data. Free and in the description. This is educational content only. It's not medical advice. Speak to your GP before changing your fasting pattern, diet or medication.